Привет из Дубая. С вами передача «ГолубьМира», где разбираем крутые навыки. Спрашиваем на английском, отвечаем на русском. Подтягивайте язык или смотрите перевод в тайм-кодах. Let's talk about theory of descriptions and let's start with the definition.
You know, right now I am feeling like a guy, lucky guy. Just several days ago, I just finished I wrote an article and it is already published. It's named in Russian like how I was building models for artificial intelligence, part 3. And in this article, I just starting to explain how this works. And in this article, I have not been using this term. Theory of description, but all this article is completely пропитано, fulfilled,
Instilled.
With theory of descriptions. And let's start to talk about this. In this article, I trying to describe a very little phrase. Newton was discovering law of attraction, притяжение, закон.
Attraction.
Law of attraction when on his head apple was fallen, and I was trying to explain how it's work because Newton is on the first play in the sentence. We couldn't understand is it name or it is subject, because sometimes if this word would be on the second or on other positions, we will understand. If it is written from large letter, from capital letter, okay, it's name. But on the first position, we did not know, and it could be girl or woman, it could be mountain on the Mars or on the moon, or it could be единица измерения,
measurement unit,
and so on. So even from this point, we couldn't understand how we work. The same would be with word when and some other stuff. So theory of description, it was developed to help people to talk in a way which will not зависеть, depend from context.
Depends.
You know, for example, I will say you, what a good job. And if you don't know context, you will understand, okay, everything's okay, and you are a good executor. But maybe it was like a joke, or maybe it was like a mock, or maybe it was some other emotion. And in this case, in theory of description, we should use just whole phrases. And you know, when I was trying to write this artificial intelligence models, I was using German language as a standard, and I will explain why. For example, in Russian language, you could say car. In English, you will say a car or this car. But in German, you will say this is das ist ein Wagen. Это есть один автомобиль. This is only one car. So there's a lot of this word. For example, when we are saying that apple was fallen on the head of Newton, by the theory of description, it couldn't work, because apple could fall on the middle of the head or on the, I don't know how, eye or nose, something like this. It could fall in the middle or maybe a bit further. So you should describe everything completely. If you use a theory of description, you will think that the person you are talking with know nothing about the subject, and you will start from the very beginning. What is apple? It is fallen from the apple tree. Newton is a famous scientist, and he was responsible for some discovering some laws. He was living in England, and he discovered this law in 1666 year, and this law was written and published in 1667, and so on.
So it seems like in this theory, we are operating with the objects that are some sort of like a nested within each other, so that every time you want to, let's say, like, for example, learn about scientists, you will learn like, okay, this is his name, etc., etc. So like when we do have such entities or objects with the child components, how do we describe the interaction as well? Like, do we use the same vocabulary? Do we use the same framework? Or we also can go like in a very lightweight, or again, we could go into very detailed approach.
If you remember when you was answering on the lesson of Russian language or English language in a school, sometimes your teacher would interrupt you and will ask, do me a favor, use just whole sentences, not just one word. For example, how many apples on the table? And you will say, okay, 3. But your teacher will say, please tell me a whole sentence. on the table, I could see, or we have 3 apples. This is the difference. So in theory of description, you should describe everything before you will use. For example, you are a grown-up person and you know everything, but for example, we will go to Peru, or we will go to Egypt, or we will go to New Zealand, and suddenly I will start to talk with you about something. On this weekends, I will conduct a lecture about hackers thinking, and I will explain that there is a trick how to avoid some laws. I don't know how to say it in English, but sometimes by church or by state, it is prohibited to show that you are power man and you have enough money. For example, it was quite usually to limit how many dishes you could use during your wedding. And usually it was like 3, but it is easy to avoid it. For example, cheese, veggies and fruits, it is not a meal, because meal is something that is cooked. But even in USA and Great Britain, it was a very famous food. Maybe you have learned. If not, it would be a very funny fact for you. But this was a name turdaken. Name of this food is turdaken. You know why? Because there's 3 kind of chicken. In Turkey was put duck, and in this duck was put chicken. It was cooked all together, and in this case you have just one food and one meal. The same would be, for example, duck with apples. In informality, this is just one kind of food. If I will go back to ancient times, Greeks was using the same. They were using like sanctuary laws, and they were preparing huge bull. Inside it was like a lamb. Inside of the lamb it would be chicken. Inside of the chicken it would be doves. Inside of the doves it would be eggs.
So it actually reminds me a little joke. It's probably would be better said in Russia, but I'll try it as well. So there is a evil personage. His name is Kashay. So the picture says like he gathered rabbit, duck, and the egg, and shows them the box and says like, "Hey guys, you don't believe what kind of crazy idea I have." So again, like when we speak about the description, obviously we would use it like in a different, parts of our life. Like we might be aware or not aware of it, but like when we're trying to pass the description to make sure the execution, or like, sorry, understanding and then execution and then maybe passing result would be correct, what kind of approach we should stick to in order to make sure that, like we don't fail on our side and we still communicated it back correctly?
You know, when you saying to someone to do anything, it is easy for you because you have an imagination and you have a vision of an ideal result. I will tell you one story. I was sitting on a meeting, and suddenly close to me it was a woman, and she showed me an SMS from her driver, and it was several SMS. She asked driver to buy, I don't know how to say, подушка, наволочки,
Pillowcase.
pillowcase, and she write it down. Please, Sergey, please buy a pillowcase by size 70 multiplied by 40. And suddenly it was replied from him. I couldn't find like this, but I found 40 by 70. And from the point of this woman, her driver was dumb, but I answered you, Yelena, if I would be on the place of your driver, I would ask you the same. Or for example, you know, there is a very old story. It was a bakery, and was an engineer, and each morning he was asking to sell to him very old булочки, cakes, I don't know how to say.
Bakery.
Very
Cakes.
old bakery bakes, and after several years, suddenly the owner of the bakery give him not the old one, but a very fresh one, and with installed, I don't know how to say this, dry grapes. How that's name in English? Izum?
Raisin.
Raisin. Okay, thank you. Raisin. And suddenly, after several minutes, it was a quarrel because engineer was asking, "What are you doing? I use your bakery not to eat, but I use it to clean my drawing, and now it is completely all spoiled." So if you ask someone to make a favor and you will not give a reason, it would be quite quite ununderstandable. The same, for example, if you will ask, I want to have a food in fancy restaurant, suddenly they will give you something what you don't like because you do not told to them that you have an allergy, for example, for peanuts, for mollusky, mussels, or maybe some milk.
And when it comes, let's say, like using theory of description in a business, especially like when we want to give an instruction in form of the documents in whatever ways, or maybe we want to describe something that could be easily understood, let's say by lawyers, by our partners, by the finance guys. So what kind of level of the, I would say, the details we will need to support in order to make sure that they will get all of this information, and if needed, they will have an understanding how exactly some unknown parts work as well.
Maxim, sometimes we work out of this conversation, out of this recording, and maybe you have noted some strange behavior what I have. First, usually I everything repeat for 3 times in different ways, and I know that for people who never know me, it is quite unusual. Why you repeat it several times? I have I have already understood, but if you will write down what I'm saying, I am making from quite different perspective. Second, I am thinking I try to make some explanation how everything is going right now, why we do this, what's the problem, and then I will also explain what I will expect, what would be an ideal result. For example, you will send me for a shop and you will say me, please buy eggs, and I will come back and I will say, I'm sorry, Maxim, but I couldn't find any chicken eggs. And you will say, okay, but you could buy some other eggs. But you know the reason. You make an fault because you did not explain what you want to do with these eggs. Maybe you want to have a salad, and in this case, I could buy, I don't know how this small chicken is called, perepelki.
Quail eggs.
Quail eggs. So I could buy quail eggs. Or more, for example, okay, it's funny, but I don't know, maybe in Dubai, you also have ostrich eggs. Страусиное яйцо.
In some of the shops, I think they have it.
So you could buy 10 chicken, or you can buy 50 quail, or you can buy 1 ostrich eggs. So it's quite the same, but it is possible just if you know what to buy. Or for example, if you buy a flower for a girl in Ukraine, and suddenly you will buy it in yellow and in четный
Odd.
In odd numbers.
Sorry, even.
I always mix it. If you will make it yellow and also even a number, and also some kind of flowers, I don't know how to say it in English, you will make in one bouquet, you will make 3 rows, and girl will think that you want to quit from the relationship.
And my last question will be how knowing about the theory of the description could help to make this world a better place.
When you start your relations with a girl or with a boy, when you make an agreement with a child, when you buy a bicycle, or when you go to Disneyland after he or she will get just good marks, when you work with your employees, you should always use theory of description. The very easy explaining will be like this. For example, you want to hire me, and you will say, Oleg, I need a man of your qualification, and you will be paid from 5 to 7,000 US dollars. In this case, you mean that I will have 5, but I will understand that sometime I will have 7, but maybe it will never happen. So we start to use theory of description to be more specific, to be more scientific looking, to be more direct, to be more understandable from a very first moment.
А мы рассмотрели навык теория дескрипций и чем он полезен именно вам. Всем мира!